He stood in a room full of millionaires, wrapped in a designer suit, pointing at the mousy woman in the corner. "That's my ex-wife," he bragged to his new bride. "Sweet girl, but zero ambition. She'll be sorting books in a dusty library for the rest of her life." What he didn't know? That mousy woman, Serafina Walsh, was just one phone call away from inheriting a $50 billion tech empire. This isn't just a story of revenge. It's the story of what happens when the most underestimated person in the room becomes the most powerful. The grand ballroom of the Asteria Hotel was drowning in crystal and old money. It was the annual Starlight Gala for the city's children's hospital, an event that Serafina Sarah Walsh had once attended on the arm of a man who commanded the room. Tonight, she was attending as a +1 of a kindly older woman from the city library, clinging to a glass of lukewarm club soda and trying to blend into the velvet drapes. Sarah was not a woman designed for ballrooms anymore. Her life, post-divorce, was a quiet melody played in a minor key, a small but neat apartment above a bakery, the scent of old paper and new coffee at her job managing the archives at the downtown library, and evenings spent with a rescued greyhound named Buster. It was small, it was safe, it was hers, but it was also lonely. And tonight, it was humiliating. Across the room, her ex-husband, Marcus Thorne, was holding court. He was breathtaking in a way that was almost offensive, a custom Tom Ford suit, a 1,000-watt smile, and a laugh that boomed with the confidence of a man who had never failed at anything. On his arm was Chloe Sullivan, his new wife. Chloe was all polished blonde hair, Arctic blue eyes, and a crimson dress that seemed poured onto her body. She was, as Marcus had told Forbes in a small feature, the perfect partner for a man on the rise. Sarah hadn't wanted to come, but her friend, Martha, had insisted. "You need to get out, dear. You can't let him keep you hidden away." So here she was, in a modest navy blue dress she'd rented, feeling like a rowboat parked next to a fleet of yachts. She was trying to slip out a side door when his voice cut through the orchestra's lull. "Sarah? My God, is that you?" Sarah froze. She turned, forcing a polite, brittle smile. "Marcus, Chloe, you both look wonderful." Marcus beamed, sliding an arm around Chloe's impossibly small waist. "We feel wonderful. Chloe just closed a massive deal for her PR firm. And Thorne Consulting? We're landing the Hensington account. Big things, Sarah, big things." Chloe smiled, a vapid, perfect expression. "It's just so lovely to see you, Sarah. Marcus has told me so much about you. It's brave of you to come to these things. I know they're not really your scene." The condescension was a physical slap. "It's a good cause," Sarah said, her voice small. Marcus leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial volume that, in reality, was meant for the 3 other couples listening in. "You know, I was just telling Richard here," he gestured to a banking executive. "I'm the luckiest man alive. When I was with Sarah, well, she's a sweet girl. The sweetest. But no fire, you know? No ambition." Sarah's stomach clenched. She could feel the blood drain from her face. "She's happy in her little apartment, reading her dusty books," Marcus continued, laughing as if sharing a fond, harmless memory. "I needed a powerhouse. I needed someone like Chloe." He kissed Chloe's temple. "My true partner. We're building an empire together." The group around him murmured in agreement. Sarah just stood there, pinned by their pity and her ex-husband's casual cruelty. He wasn't just praising his new wife. He was actively painting Sarah as the before picture, the dowdy, unambitious creature he had rightfully discarded. "Well," Sarah said, her voice trembling slightly, I should be going. Martha is looking for me." Of course, of course. Take care of yourself, Sarah. And hey," he added, a final twist of the knife, "let me know if the library needs a donation. I'm feeling generous." Sarah walked away. She didn't run. She walked, step by agonizing step, past the laughing millionaires, past the shrimp towers and the string quartet, out the grand lobby doors and into the cold, damp night air. She hailed a cab, her reflection in the window showing a pale, forgettable woman with tears welling in her eyes. What Marcus, in his magnificent arrogance, had forgotten, or perhaps had deliberately erased, was why she had no fire. She remembered a different night, 12 years ago. She was 22, clutching an acceptance letter to MIT's prestigious computer science postgrad program, a full scholarship in hand. She had a mind for complex systems and algorithms that professors called once in a generation. She was going to revolutionize data encryption. Then Marcus, a promising law student, had gone down on one knee. "We can't be a power couple if you're in a lab until 3 a.m., he'd argued gently. "I need a partner, Sarah. Someone to host the dinners, to charm the partners. You can do your coding thing on the side. But I need to make a partner by 30. Help me do that. Help us." And she, blinded by love and the promise of us, had said yes. She had deferred her admission. Then she'd declined it. She learned to host dinners. She learned to charm. She edited his briefs, researched his cases, and built the social scaffolding that allowed him to climb. She didn't just support his ambition. She had been the fuel for it. And when he'd made partner, when he'd launched Thorn Consulting, he looked at the woman who had given up her entire future for him and decided she was unambitious. She'd been left with a small settlement, a deep, aching void where her own dreams used to be, and the label of sweet girl. As the taxi rattled toward her quiet street, Sarah made a promise to herself. She would never, ever go to a gala again. She would just be content in her small, safe world. She didn't know that her world, and Marcus Thorne's, was about to explode. The morning after the gala was thick with a familiar, post-humiliation haze. Sarah woke up, walked Buster in the pale dawn light, and went to the library, immersing herself in the scent of cedar and aging paper. She was cataloguing a collection of 19th century botanical sketches, a task so precise and quiet it was almost a form of meditation. Her world was small, yes, but it was orderly. She was fine. She was not fine. Marcus's words echoed in the silence between the clock's ticks. No fire. No ambition. She was reshelving a heavy-bound copy of Gray's Anatomy when her personal cell phone, a simple, nondescript model, vibrated in her pocket. She rarely got calls she didn't recognize. The caller ID was a New York number, a law firm. Kensington and Reed. She stepped into the quiet staff room. "This is Seraphina Walsh." "Miss Walsh," said a voice, crisp as a new dollar bill. It was smooth, deep, and held an authority that made Sarah automatically stand up straighter. "My name is David Chen. I am a senior partner at Kensington and Reed. I am calling you on behalf of the estate of your great-uncle, Mr. Arthur Grayson." Sarah's breath hitched. Arthur. Arthur Grayson was the black sheep of her mother's family, a recluse, a genius, a ghost. While the rest of the family had settled into comfortable, predictable suburban lives, Arthur had disappeared into the burgeoning world of Silicon Valley in the 1980s and become a myth. He founded a company called Grayson Dynamics. He tinkered with robotics and artificial intelligence. He never married. He never gave interviews. Sarah had only met him twice in her life as a child. But they had a secret. For the last 15 years, they had been pen pals, not via email, Arthur hated the vulnerability of the open net, as he put it. They wrote long, handwritten letters. She wrote to him about her struggles in college, her fascination with algorithms, her life with Marcus. He wrote back about philosophy, the stars, the flawed beauty of creating a synthetic mind, and his prize-winning orchids. When she told him she was giving up MIT for Marcus, his reply had been short and sharp. A man who requires you to be small to feel big is a cage builder. Be careful you don't forget the shape of the sky. She hadn't heard from him in 6 months. Is he all right? Sarah asked, her hand tightening on the phone. Mr. Grayson passed away 2 days ago, Ms. Walsh, peacefully, at his estate in Northern California, Mr. Chen said. His tone was not unkind, but it was devoid of emotion. He was very specific in his final instructions. His will is to be read in our New York office tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. sharp. The will? But I'm sure he left everything to, I don't know, a foundation? Ms. Walsh, Mr. Chen said, a slight emphasis on her name. Mr. Grayson was exceptionally specific. Your presence is not optional. It is integral. A car will be at your apartment at 7 a.m. to take you to the airport. A suite is reserved for you at the Pierre. Please bring photo identification. We will see you at 10. The line clicked dead. Sarah stood in the staff room, the smell of burnt coffee and old sweaters filling her nose. Her world, so carefully ordered, felt like it was tilting on its axis. Meanwhile, 20 blocks away, in a glass and steel penthouse overlooking the park, Marcus Thorne was drinking an espresso and reading the Wall Street Journal. Chloe emerged from their bedroom around 10 a.m., wrapped in a silk robe. "Ugh, my head," she moaned, kissing his shoulder. "That champagne was divine. Did you see the look on Sarah's face last night? God, it was tragic. That dress, it looked like a recycled bridesmaid's gown." "She knows her place," Marcus said, not looking up from his paper. "It's where she's comfortable. Some people just aren't built for the fast lane, sweetheart. It's not a flaw, it's just biology." "Speaking of the fast lane," Chloe said, sliding a platinum credit card statement across the table. "The Amex bill came. We need to talk about the Hamptons house. The designer is insisting on Italian marble for the whole ground floor." Marcus sighed. "Chloe, the Kensington deal hasn't closed yet. Can the marble wait?" "Wait. Marcus, darling, this is our image. We're the new power couple. We can't have our guests walking on porcelain," she pouted. "Besides, you're the one who told me to build a life worthy of us. Don't go cheap on me now. What's the point of ditching the old model if you can't afford the upgrade?" Marcus looked at her pout, then at the bill. He felt a small, sharp pinprick of unease. He'd been leveraging his consulting firm heavily, betting everything on the Kensington deal. He'd told Chloe he was worth hundreds of millions. In reality, he was worth a fraction of that, and most of it was tied up in debt and speculation. He needed this deal. "Of course, my love," he said, forcing another smile. "Italian marble it is. I'll handle it." He looked back at his paper, turning to the tech section. There was a small brief on the bottom of page C4. Tech recluse Arthur Grayson, founder of Grayson Dynamics, dead at 78. Marcus barely registered the name. It meant nothing to him. He turned the page, thinking about marble and the high cost of his brand-new, ambitious life. The conference room at Kensington and Reed was on the 80th floor, a sterile glass box in the clouds that overlooked all of Manhattan. Sarah, who had been whisked from her apartment to a first-class flight to a luxury suite she was terrified to touch, felt like she was in a dream. She wore her only suit, a simple, well-maintained black wool blend that still felt inadequate compared to the severe, high-fashion armor of the two other people in the room. They were a man and a woman in their 50s, with sharp faces and the hungry eyes of vultures. "Cousin Desmond and Cousin Beatrice," Mr. Chen introduced them, though they barely glanced at Sarah, dismissing her instantly as staff or a minor beneficiary. "Let's get on with it, Chen," Desmond snapped, tapping his Cartier watch. "Beatrice and I have a flight to Aspen. Arthur was a lunatic. We all know it. Just tell us how he carved up the company so we can get on with liquidating it." Mr. Chen sat, a picture of calm, and opened a thick, leather-bound portfolio. "As you wish. Mr. Grayson's will is precise. He leaves his collection of 17th century maps to the New York Public Library." Desmond scoffed. "He leaves his collection of restored World War II-era aircraft to the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum." Beatrice rolled her eyes. "To his cousins, Desmond and Beatrice Grayson, he leaves the sum of $100,000 each, provided they do not contest this will." The air crackled. "100,000? Beatrice hissed. "The man was worth billions. That's an insult." "If you contest," Mr. Chen continued smoothly, as if reading a weather report, "your share is forfeit and will be donated to the Arthur Grayson Orchid Preservation Trust, which I should add is already endowed with $200 million. Desmond and Beatrice went pale, then purple with rage. They were trapped. "And now," Mr. Chen said, "we come to the bulk of the estate." He paused, looking directly at Sarah for the first time, his gaze analytical. "All remaining personal assets, including the penthouse in New York, the estate in Big Sur, the chalet in Gstaad, and all liquid assets, holdings and trusts valued at approximately $7 billion are left to his great-niece, Serafina Ann Walsh." Sarah stopped breathing. Desmond made a sound like a strangled goose. But that's—" Beatrice stammered. "Furthermore," Mr. Chen continued, his voice cutting through the tension, "Mr. Grayson's controlling interest, 92% of Grayson Dynamics, valued at approximately $43 billion, is also bequeathed to Serafina Ann Walsh." Sarah felt the room spin. $50 billion. She gripped the arms of the leather chair. "This is a joke," Desmond roared, standing up. "She's a librarian. He was senile. We'll fight this." "I would advise against that, Mr. Grayson," Mr. Chen said, "as it would forfeit your 100,000. But more importantly, Mr. Grayson anticipated your reaction. He included a stipulation." He turned the page. "The inheritance of Grayson Dynamics is conditional. It is not a gift. It is a codicil of trust." Sarah's head snapped up. "Mr. Grayson believed, Miss Walsh, that you possess a mind equal to his own, a mind you have, in his words, allowed to gather dust. He is, therefore, forcing your hand." Mr. Chen looked at her. "Condition 1. You must assume the role of acting Chief Executive Officer of Grayson Dynamics, effective immediately. You have 72 hours to accept the position, or the entire inheritance, personal and corporate, is forfeit." "CEO?" Sarah whispered, her voice a dry squeak. "Condition 2, Mr. Chen pressed on. Grayson Dynamics is currently facing a hostile takeover bid from a rival conglomerate, Omnicorp Global. There is also an internal merger proposal being pushed by the current board, led by acting CEO Robert Sterling. A shareholder vote on this merger is scheduled in exactly 30 days. Your inheritance, Mr. Chen said, is contingent on you defeating that merger. You must prove to the board and the shareholders that you are the rightful leader of the company. If you fail, if the merger is approved, or if you are removed as CEO before the 30-day mark, you lose everything. The company, the houses, the money. It will all be dissolved and placed into the Orchid Trust." He closed the folder. The company's private jet is waiting at Teterboro to take you to the headquarters in Palo Alto. You have 72 hours to decide, Ms. Walsh. But the 30-day clock on the merger vote, that started the moment your great-uncle passed. You have 28 days left. Choose wisely. Sarah sat in the stunned silence, the sound of her own blood rushing in her ears. Across from her, Desmond and Beatrice were staring at her, their expressions a toxic cocktail of hatred, disbelief, and a sudden, sickening avarice. $50 billion? Or nothing. Before Sarah could even form a word, Mr. Chen's assistant quietly entered the room and whispered in his ear. Mr. Chen nodded, a flicker of something, was it amusement, in his eyes. It seems, Miss Walsh, your decision may have an audience. My assistant informs me that a junior member of our PR team, eager to get ahead of the story, has just released the preliminary news of the will. It seems you are already the lead story on Bloomberg, CNBC, and every financial blog on the planet. He added, Your 72 hours start now. The explosion was instantaneous. Back in New York, Marcus Thorne was in a high-stakes meeting with his Kensington clients. His phone, set to vibrate on the glass table, began to buzz. He ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. It buzzed with such frantic, relentless energy that it skittered across the glass, distracting the client. "Excuse me," Marcus said, irritated. He glanced at the screen. 14 missed calls, 32 text messages. The top one was from his partner, Jack Reeves. "Jack, call me, now. This is not a joke. Jack, turn on CNBC. I don't care. Turn it on. Jack, Marcus, your ex-wife, just inherited Grayson Dynamics, not a typo." Grayson. Marcus stared at the text. It made no sense. He mumbled an apology, grabbed the remote, and turned on the large monitor in the conference room, switching it to CNBC. The breaking news banner screamed across the bottom, "Unknown librarian inherits. 50B Grayson Dynamics Empire. Serafina Walsh named CEO in shocking will." A photo flashed on screen. It was an old, candid shot of Sarah from a long-forgotten charity 5K, smiling shyly, her hair in a messy ponytail. Marcus Thorne choked. He didn't just choke. He made a strangled, horrifying sound, spraying his $12 espresso across the glass table. The Kensington clients stared, appalled. "Serafina. Walsh," he whispered, his entire body going cold, then hot. That's my ex-wife," he said to the stunned room. The client he'd been trying to impress, a man who had been at the gala the night before, slowly raised an eyebrow. "Your ex-wife? The librarian? The one with no ambition?" Marcus's 1,000-watt smile was gone. His face was a mask of chalky, abject horror. Chloe, meanwhile, was at a high-end salon getting a blowout. Her phone, too, was exploding. When she finally looked at it, she saw the news alert. She stared at the photo of Sarah. She stared at the number. 50,000. Her manicured hand clenched so tightly that her nails snapped, digging into her palm. "That mouse," she hissed, her voice loud enough to make the stylist jump. "That nothing." Her envy was so potent, so visceral, it was almost nauseating. The woman her husband had publicly mocked, the woman she pitied, was now one of the richest, most powerful women in the world. Chloe's first gut-wrenching thought wasn't about Sarah. It was, he married the wrong woman. Sarah, oblivious to the storm she had caused, was on Arthur's private Gulfstream G650, flying over a country that was just learning her name. She was numb. Mr. Chen had provided her with a tablet containing the initial briefing. Grayson Dynamics, 15,000 employees, global leader in AI-driven logistics and experimental robotics. The board, hostile. The acting CEO, Robert Sterling, a 30-year corporate veteran who was deeply insulted by Arthur's choice. The merger. Sterling was pushing to merge with a rival, creating a massive, unwieldy entity that would make him and the board fabulously wealthy via stock options, but would, in Arthur's own notes, destroy the company's soul. She arrived at the sprawling, futuristic Grayson Dynamics campus in Palo Alto. It looked less like an office and more like a university from the 23rd century. She was met by a severe-looking woman in her late 50s with a sharp black bob and an impeccably tailored suit. "Ms. Walsh, I am Evelyn Reed. I was Mr. Grayson's executive assistant for 35 years. I am now, it seems, yours." Her tone was impossible to read. Was it loyalty or resentment? "Please, call me Sarah," Sarah stammered, clutching her handbag. "I will not, Miss Walsh. You are the CEO," Evelyn said, not unkindly. "The board is waiting. They have convened an emergency welcome meeting. Do not mistake them. They are lions, and you are, in their eyes, a small injured deer." Evelyn led her through an atrium where a massive robotic arm was painting a delicate watercolor, and into a vast, intimidating boardroom. 12 faces, all male, all over 50, all radiating hostile skepticism, turned to look at her. At the head of the table sat Robert Sterling. He was a big man, with a thick neck and a condescending smile. "Ms. Walsh, Serafina. May I call you Serafina?" he began, not waiting for an answer. "Welcome to Grayson Dynamics. We are, of course, stunned by Arthur's decision." The board members chuckled darkly. "This is a multi-billion-dollar corporation, not a public library. We are in the middle of a highly sensitive, time-critical merger. This is not a place for amateurs." "Mr. Sterling," Sarah said, her voice shaking, but she forced it to hold. "My great-uncle. Mr. Grayson. He entrusted me with this. He was an old, sentimental fool." Sterling slammed his hand on the table just once, a calculated show of dominance. "This merger is the only thing that will save this company from obsolescence. Arthur was letting it stagnate. We vote in 28 days. The best thing you can do, Serafina, is stay in your new office, sign the papers we give you, and let the professionals handle this. Do that, and you'll still be a billionaire. Get in our way, and you'll be the woman who destroyed a legacy in less than a month." The message was clear. Be a good girl and sit down. Sarah looked at the faces of the men who were, technically, her employees. She saw the same look she'd seen on Marcus's face at the gala. Pity, dismissal, contempt. She felt the old, familiar urge to shrink, to apologize, to flee. But then she looked at Evelyn Reed, standing silently by the door, her expression unreadable. "I will," Sarah said. "Need to review the merger documents, all of them, and the company's financials for the last 5 years." Sterling laughed. "Review? Honey, these are documents that would make a Harvard MBA's head spin. Just let us... Now, Mr. Sterling, please have them sent to my office, the CEO's office," Sarah said. Her voice was still quiet, but the tremor was gone. A flicker of surprise crossed Sterling's face. He nodded curtly. "As you wish. Evelyn, show Ms. Walsh to her office. Get her settled." The office was vast, a corner suite with glass walls overlooking the campus. In the center was a massive modern desk, but in the corner there was an old-fashioned armchair and a wooden filing cabinet. "He sat there," Evelyn said, her voice softening for the first time, pointing to the armchair. "He hated that desk. He called it the monolith." Evelyn pointed to the filing cabinet. "He left this for you. The lock is your mother's birthday." Sarah, her fingers trembling, dialed the combination. The drawer clicked open. Inside was not a file, but a single, thick, cream-colored envelope, sealed with red wax. It was addressed in Arthur's familiar, spiky handwriting. For Seraphina, when they think you're a mouse. She opened it. My dearest Sarah, if you are reading this, I am gone, and the lions are at your door. Good. Let them roar. They have forgotten what a mind like yours can do. They see you as a librarian. They've forgotten the 19-year-old who sent me a 40-page letter correcting the flaws in my new encryption algorithm. I didn't forget. I've been following your quiet life. I saw you dim your own light to make a small man feel tall. I saw you atrophy. I am not giving you a gift, Sarah. I am giving you a sword. And I am giving you a shield. These men, Sterling especially, are thieves. They are selling my company not for profit, but to cover their own mistakes. They are not as clever as they think. You, however, are cleverer than you have ever believed. Your MIT dreams are not dead. They are just asleep. Wake them up. Look at the code. Look at the books. They're cooking them. Find it. Don't let them break you. You are a Grayson. And more importantly, you are Seraphina Walsh. You have the fire. I'm just forcing you to use it. Your proud uncle, Arthur tucked behind the letter, was a small, leather-bound notebook. Sarah opened it. It was full of handwritten notes, equations, and observations. It was Arthur's private ledger, his real thoughts on his company. Sarah stood there for a long time, the letter in her hand. The fear was still there, a cold stone in her stomach. But alongside it, something else was flickering to life. A spark, a tiny hot ember of the fire she thought Marcus had extinguished forever. Evelyn, Sarah said, turning to the woman, please cancel all my meetings for the rest of the day, and bring me coffee. A lot of coffee, and the last 5 years of financials. All of them. Evelyn Reed allowed herself a small, thin smile. Yes, Miss Walsh. For the next 3 weeks, Seraphina Walsh disappeared. The media went into a frenzy. Billionaire heiress goes into hiding, screamed the headlines. Is Sarah Walsh cracking under the pressure? She wasn't hiding. She was working. She and Evelyn Reed, who had quickly revealed herself to be fiercely, almost terrifyingly loyal to Arthur's memory, turned the CEO's office into a war room. They slept on cots. They lived on coffee and takeout. Sarah, with Arthur's notebook as her Rosetta Stone, began to do what she had been born to do. She analyzed complex systems. She wasn't just a librarian. She was a systems analyst. Her mind, which had organized the Dewey Decimal System to obsessive perfection, now devoured corporate spreadsheets, server logs, and encrypted project files. The board, led by Robert Sterling, sent her mountains of useless, redacted data. But Arthur's notebook gave her the backdoor passwords. They're not just cooking the books, Evelyn, Sarah murmured at 3 a.m., surrounded by printouts. They're running a whole ghost kitchen. She found it. A shell corporation, registered in the Cayman Islands, siphoning millions from the R&D budget. It was disguised as a consulting fee. A shell corporation that was, in turn, funding a series of high-risk, failing investments, all managed by Robert Sterling's brother-in-law. The merger wasn't a power play, it was a cover-up. Sterling needed the Omnicorp merger to bury his embezzlement in a sea of new, confusing paperwork. He's not just a thief, Evelyn said, her voice tight with rage. He's a traitor. We're not ready to move yet, Sarah said. We need to find the final link, the proof. She was no longer a mousy librarian. Her voice was low, confident, and sharp. The fire was lit. While Sarah was digging, Marcus Thorne was drowning. The moment the world learned that his ambitionless ex-wife was a billionaire, his own carefully constructed world fell apart. First, his phone. It never stopped ringing. Texts from men he barely knew. Hey, remember me? Congrats on Sarah's news. We should golf. And from women. I never did like Chloe. But the worst calls were from his clients. Marcus, the Hensington CEO, had said, "We can't move forward. The optics are bad. You publicly humiliated a woman who is now one of the most powerful figures in tech. It shows a spectacular lack of judgment." He lost the Hensington account. Then another. And another. His reputation as a savvy consultant evaporated. He was now just the idiot who divorced the billionaire. He tried to contact Sarah. Text 1. "Sarah, my God, I just heard. I'm stunned. Call me. We need to celebrate." No reply. Delivered. Text 2. "Sarah, it's Marcus. Are you getting these? This is incredible. I always knew you had this in you. I always said you were brilliant." No reply. Delivered. Text 3. "Serafina, don't be like this. This is us. You're my family. I'm worried about you. This Sterling guy is bad news. Call me. I can help you." No reply. Blocked. He was terrified, but not as terrified as Chloe. Chloe's PR firm was a vanity project funded by a trust fund that was rapidly dwindling. Her lavish lifestyle was built on a mountain of secret debt. She had seen Marcus as her savior. Now, he was the one with money problems. "Do something, Marcus!" she shrieked, throwing a $3,000 vase against the wall of their penthouse. "She's your ex-wife. You were married to her. You should be entitled to half of that." "That's not how divorce works, Chloe," Marcus yelled back, his own panic making him cruel. "I signed the papers. It's over." "Then make it not over," she screamed. "Find some dirt on her. Find anything. I will not be poor. I will not go back to being a nobody." Chloe, propelled by a desperate, venomous envy, started to make calls. She called old friends, distant relatives of Sarah's, anyone who had known them as a couple. She was digging for a scandal, a weakness, anything she could use to either blackmail Sarah or destroy her. And Marcus was looking at his own company's financials. Thorne Consulting was about to go bankrupt. His only remaining major client, a mid-level software company called Analytica Solutions, was keeping him afloat. He was reviewing the Analytica contract when he saw a clause he'd never paid attention to. Analytica Solutions had just been acquired, 3 months prior, in a quiet deal. It had been bought by Grayson Dynamics. Marcus's blood ran ice cold. His last lifeline, the only contract paying his bills, was owned by his ex-wife's new company. Serafina Walsh now had the power to sign or to terminate, the one thing keeping him from total ruin. He stared at the contract. The renewal date was in 1 week, the day of the shareholder vote. He had to get to her. He had to beg. Chloe struck first. 2 days before the shareholder meeting, a salacious story dropped on a major gossip blog. The Gilded Cage. Exclusive. Billionaire heiress. A volatile recluse, say sources. Fears for mental stability. The article was a masterpiece of innuendo, crafted by Chloe's PR-trained hands and fed to the blogger. It featured anonymous quotes. She was always unstable. After the divorce, she had a complete breakdown. She barely left her apartment for 6 months. It included photos. Paparazzi shots of Sarah, looking exhausted and pale in her old coat, walking Buster. But worse, it included private photos from the divorce. Sarah, crying, her face blotchy, taken by Marcus himself and saved on a shared cloud Chloe had access to. The story was devastating. It painted Sarah not as a hard-working CEO, but as a fragile, heartbroken woman crumbling under pressure. Robert Sterling pounced. He called an emergency confidence meeting of the board, scheduled for the morning of the full shareholder vote. The media was alerted. The narrative was set. The board was concerned for Ms. Walsh's well-being. They were going to relieve her of her burden, and approve the merger to stabilize the company. The morning of the vote, Sarah Walsh walked into the boardroom. The lions were all there, their faces grave and sympathetic, which was far more terrifying than their open hostility. The room was packed. Financial press, board members, key shareholders. "Serafina," Robert Sterling began, his voice dripping with false concern. "We have all seen these disturbing reports. We are worried about you. This has been too much, too fast. We, the board, have prepared a motion. We are voting to relieve you of your duties as CEO for your own health. We will table the merger vote until—" No. The word was not loud, but it was so cold, so absolute, that it cut off Sterling's speech. Sarah Walsh stood at the podium. She was not the woman from the gala. Her hair was pulled back in a severe, elegant chignon. She wore a dark grey, armour-like suit. The only colour on her was a flash of crimson lipstick. She looked, as one reporter later wrote, like a queen about to sign an execution order. "You will not table the merger vote, Mr. Sterling, because we are all going to vote no," Sarah said. "Now, Serafina, be reasonable," Sterling said, trying to regain control. "You're clearly unwell." "Unwell?" Sarah smiled, a chilling, humourless expression. "No, Mr. Sterling, I'm just angry." She clicked a remote. The massive screen behind her, which was supposed to show Sterling's motion, flashed to life. It showed a bank flowchart. "This," Sarah said, her voice resonating with power, "is a shell corporation called Apex Capital Partners, registered in the Cayman Islands." Sterling's face went from pink to white. "For 3 years, you have been approving consulting payments to Apex, payments totaling $87 million. You did this, you claimed, for external R&D. But Apex has no employees. It has no office. It has one bank account, which then funnels money to a series of unfortunate personal investments." She clicked again. A photo of a lavish, half-built mansion in Turks and Caicos appeared, all owned by your brother-in-law, Mr. Gerald Vance. The room gasped. The board members stared at Sterling, their faces now masks of horror. "The Omnicorp merger," Sarah continued, her voice icy, "was never about saving this company. It was about burying this. You were going to let Omnicorp absorb us, liquidate our best projects, and lay off 4,000 employees, all to hide your $87 million theft." Sterling was sputtering. This is slander. It's a fabrication." "Is it?" Sarah clicked again. The screen filled with an email from Sterling to his brother-in-law. "The merger will solve everything. The old books will be buried. Just keep the project going." "You may have forgotten, Mr. Sterling," Sarah said, "but my uncle was an encryption expert, and I, as you so helpfully pointed out, am a librarian. I'm very, very good at finding things." She looked at the stunned board. "The merger is dead, as is Mr. Sterling's career." "Security?" 2 large men stepped forward and flanked Sterling, who looked as if he'd been shot. "But the leadership," one board member stammered. "The company, the stability, the articles." "The articles," Sarah said, "were a pathetic, desperate smear campaign planted by a woman with over $2 million in credit card debt and a failing PR firm. A woman who, I believe, is married to—" The doors of the boardroom burst open. It was Marcus Thorne. He was not the polished man from the gala. His suit was wrinkled. He hadn't shaved. His eyes were wild with desperation. "Sarah! Sarah, stop!" he yelled, pushing past security. He ran to the podium, his voice dropping to a desperate, private beg, though the whole room could hear. "Sarah, please don't! You can't! My company! The Analytica contract! You own it now! Sarah, please, I'm begging you! I'm ruined! Chloe, she's ruined me!" He actually grabbed her arm. "I'll do anything. I'll leave her. We can talk. I always loved you, Sarah. I was an idiot." Sarah looked at his hand on her arm. She looked at his terrified, pleading face. This was the man who had called her ambitionless. The man who had mocked her for his own amusement. The man who had, as her uncle said, built a cage for her. She did not pull her arm away. She simply stared at him, her expression unreadable. "Mr. Thorne," she said, her voice clear and carrying across the silent, shocked room. "Get your hand off me." He flinched, snatching it back as if burned. "Your partnership with Chloe Sullivan is your own business," Sarah said, her eyes boring into his. "As for the articles she planted, attempting to defame me and manipulate the stock of this company, our legal team will be in touch with her shortly. I believe that's called stock market manipulation and libel." Marcus's face crumpled. "As for Thorne Consulting," she continued, "your contract with Analytica Solutions is indeed up for renewal today. Evelyn?" Evelyn Reed stepped forward, holding a single file. She opened it. "After a review of your firm's performance, billing practices, and recent reputational liabilities, Grayson Dynamics has decided to terminate the contract, effective immediately." "No," Marcus whispered. He sank to his knees. "No, Sarah, please." "My name," she said, looking down at the broken man at her feet, "is Ms. Walsh, and this meeting is for shareholders only. Security. Please remove Mr. Thorne." As he was dragged out, protesting and begging, Sarah turned back to the podium and the speechless room. She straightened her suit jacket. "All business." "Now," she said, "let's talk about the real future of Grayson Dynamics. I have a 10-year plan. It doesn't involve being absorbed. It involves acquiring, starting with Omnicorp's entire AI division. Page 1 of the new presentation. Please, Evelyn." The silence that fell over the boardroom after Marcus Thorne was hauled, shouting and pathetic, from the room was absolute. It was the silence of an execution, followed by a coronation. The remaining board members, who just 10 minutes earlier had been ready to depose her, now stared at Seraphina Walsh as if she were a new, terrifying species of predator. Robert Sterling was gone, his face a mask of grey disbelief, led away by security for the authorities. The smear campaign had been diffused. The ambitionless ex-wife was a fabrication. The woman at the podium was all that was real. Sarah, in the quiet, didn't sit. She didn't waver. She simply took a sip of water and clicked to the next slide of her presentation. "Now," she said, her voice as calm and clear as a winter morning, "as I was saying, the 10-year plan." For the next hour she laid it out, not as a plea, but as a decree. She eviscerated the faulty logic of the Omnicorp merger, pointing out redundancies and asset-stripping intentions they had all conveniently overlooked. Then she presented her own vision, an aggressive expansion into ethical AI, the reopening of Arthur's Project Daedalus for advanced robotics, and the strategic acquisition of 2 key competitors. "We are not a company that waits to be absorbed, gentlemen," she concluded, her eyes sweeping over every face. "We are a company that hunts. We will not be selling our soul. We will be buying the future." When she finished, there was another beat of silence. Then, the oldest member of the board, a man named Henry Blackwood, who had been Arthur's contemporary, slowly began to clap. The others, one by one, joined him. It wasn't the polite applause of a boardroom. It was the stunned, fervent applause of survivors. "A vote," Henry said, his voice hoarse, "all in favor of confirming Seraphina Walsh as permanent CEO, and approving her proposed 10-year strategic plan. Every single hand went up, instantly. "And all in favor," Henry continued, his eyes glittering, "of filing a civil suit against Mr. Sterling and his associates, and providing all of Ms. Walsh's evidence to the district attorney." Every hand went up again. Sarah nodded once. "Thank you, gentlemen. Evelyn, please schedule the first acquisition review for 7 a.m. tomorrow. This meeting is adjourned." She walked out of the room, not to the sound of whispers, but to the sound of frantic, terrified phone calls as the board members scrambled to get on the right side of history. Her history. The downfalls were not a slow decline. They were an avalanche. Robert Sterling was the first to fall, charged with wire fraud, embezzlement, and securities fraud. He was facing decades in prison. He tried to claim Serafina had fabricated the evidence. The digital trail she and Evelyn had uncovered was so perfect, so irrefutable, that his defense lawyer quit. He was ruined, his name becoming a verb in Silicon Valley for spectacular self-destruction. Chloe Sullivan Thorne was next. The lawsuit from Grayson Dynamics landed on her pristine marble coffee table the same day her American Express Centurion card was declined. The suit for defamation, libel, and conspiracy to commit stock manipulation was for $100 million. Her secret debts, no longer propped up by Marcus's dwindling credit, were called in. She found Marcus in their penthouse, staring blankly at a television that was reporting on his own ex-wife's genius boardroom coup. "You have to fix this," Chloe shrieked, waving the lawsuit. "She's suing me! Me! This is your fault! You picked her! You left her! You didn't even get half!" Marcus turned, his face a hollow mask. The arrogance was gone. The charm was gone. All that was left was a terrified, petty man. "My fault," he whispered. You're the one who planted the story. You're the one who poked the bear, you idiot. You poked a dragon. I was trying to help us." "There is no us," Marcus roared, finally snapping. "There is just you and your debt and the mess you made. You and your endless empty ambition." The irony of his own words was lost on him. Their divorce was not a polite separation. It was a scorched earth battle between two rats on a sinking ship. Chloe, in a final desperate move, sold a tell-all to a reality show, Billionaire Ex-Wives, after the fall. The show was cancelled after 3 episodes for low ratings. She was last seen selling high-end real estate in Scottsdale, using her maiden name. Marcus Thorne's fate was, in many ways, the most poetic. Thorne Consulting evaporated in 72 hours. He filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. The penthouse, the suits, the watches, the custom-built life, all liquidated at auction. He was left with nothing but a reputation as the single biggest fool in modern financial history. The man who had bragged about his ex-wife's zero ambition became a global laughingstock. He found a job, eventually. An entry-level analyst position at a small, faceless firm in Wilmington, Delaware. He shared a 2-bedroom apartment with another divorced analyst. He wore off-the-rack suits. He was, in the end, precisely the kind of man he had always despised, a nobody. 6 months later, the main hall at the World Economic Forum in Davos was packed. The air hummed with the energy of presidents, prime ministers, and the most powerful CEOs on Earth. The keynote speaker this year was the most talked-about woman in the world, Serafina Walsh. When she walked onto the stage, it was a universe away from her entrance at the Starlight Gala. She wore a simple, elegant, dark blue dress, her hair pulled back. She was not in armor. She was simply, powerfully, herself. She looked out at the sea of faces, and this time, she was the one they had all come to see. "For a long time," she began, her voice filling the massive hall, I was told that ambition was loud, that success was a performance. I was taught that if you were quiet, you were invisible. If you were supportive, you were unambitious. If you were a librarian, you were a librarian. A soft, knowing laugh rippled through the audience. I am here to tell you that the most revolutionary ideas are often born in the quietest rooms. The strongest foundations are built not by the loudest voice, but by the most observant mind. My great-uncle, Arthur Grayson, built an empire because he listened to the code. I plan to honor his legacy by listening to the world. She didn't just talk about AI and robotics. She announced the Serafina Grayson Grant, a $2 billion endowment. This grant, she said, is for women in STEM. But specifically, it is for the women who took a detour, the ones who were told to step back to support someone else's dream, the ones who dimmed their own light to make small men feel tall. This is for you. Your detour is over. Welcome back. The standing ovation lasted 5 full minutes. Later that evening, in the private lounge for speakers, she was approached by Evelyn Reed, who was, as always, a bastion of calm efficiency. "Ms. Walsh, a remarkable speech," Evelyn said, handing her a tablet. "The acquisition of the Tokyo lab is complete, and a final item from the Thorn bankruptcy auction closed today." "Oh," Sarah said, barely looking up from the acquisition data. "Yes, it was his private wine collection. Apparently he was very proud of it. The trustees were asking if you'd like to place a bid. It's all that's left of his estate." Serafina paused. She thought of Marcus, bragging at the gala, holding his champagne. She thought of him on his knees in the boardroom. She felt a distant echo. Not pity, not anger. Just distance, as if looking at a character from a book she'd finished long ago. "Donate it," Serafina said. "Donate it, Ms. Walsh. Have the trust buy the entire collection and donate it to the City Library for their annual fundraising auction. I'm sure Martha will get a good price for it. It will fund the children's reading program for a year." She turned a quiet humiliation into a public good, without a second thought. "Of course, Miss Walsh. The jet is ready. Shall I have the driver take you to the Gstad Chalet for the weekend, or the penthouse in New York?" Serafina smiled, a real, genuine smile, the kind of smile she hadn't had at the gala. "Neither," she said, shrugging on her simple wool coat. "Take me to the airport. I want to go home." "Home, Ms. Walsh?" "To my apartment," Serafina said, heading for the door. "The one above the bakery. I promised Buster I'd be home in time for his walk." Evelyn watched her go, the most powerful woman in the world, walking out of a palace of kings and into the cold night air, not to claim a throne, but to keep a promise to a rescued dog. She was no longer Serafina the Mouse or Serafina the Queen. She was, finally and completely, Serafina Walsh, and that was more than enough. Serafina Walsh proved that the quietest person in the room is often the most powerful. She didn't just get revenge. She reclaimed the brilliant mind her ex-husband tried to bury. What Marcus and Chloe saw as no ambition was simply a fire waiting for the right fuel. And in the end, the mousy librarian didn't just get the last laugh. She bought the whole company. What did you think of Serafina's incredible transformation? Have you ever seen someone so underestimated come back and completely change the game? Let us know your favorite twist in the comments below. If you love stories of justice, karma, and incredible true-life drama, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to see it, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel and ring the bell so you never miss a single story.